Well, will these super committees leave markets in a mess? Mark Lamkin, Lamkin Wealth Management CEO, joins me now. All right, Mark, you got to help me clarify this now. All right, wasn't this already baked into the numbers? Didn't we already have a failure by the super committee priced in? I've got the Dow down 291 points right now. There's got to be a lot more going on today.
You know, I really don't think so. I think this super committee is like the Grinch that stole the Christmas rally. I mean, the bottom line is that we were all optimistic. Despite the 9% approval rating of Congress, I think most Americans were optimistic that they were going to set the tone and come up with $2 to $3 trillion, or at least a $1.5 to $1.7 trillion. So I think this really sets a tone of maybe lack of confidence, and we missed a golden opportunity here, and we're paying the price for it today. The risk-off trade is on right now, because nobody wants to hold positions with this type of sentiment out there going into the holiday weekend.
No, Mark, but last time you were on the show, you were recommending to our viewers intermediate muni bonds, and you were saying that that was a good thing, but you've been scaling back, scaling out of that, taking profit. That tells me that you're concerned about the muni market. Is it just tied to Washington, or is there something else there?
You know, I don't think I'm necessarily concerned about the muni market. We're simply taking some profits off the table. We were lucky enough to make a really good call in January, February this year, up 8–9% on some of these muni picks, and so we're scaling back, and actually we're adding risk right now, like J&K and the Barclays High Yield Index. I do think with corporate earnings as strong as they are, year over year up 10%, S&P 500 going to hit record earnings. Default rates are going to stay low. So we're actually taking money off the table in the muni space and adding to the high yield market right now.
Well, you also like Dow Jones Tech and Dow Jones Consumer Goods. I want to give those to our viewers and show them, because these, in your opinion, are things that you're interested in right now. And these could be, in some, circles of thought, defensive sectors, consumer goods and technologies, because they have been performing strongly, correct?
Yeah, we're thinking about cash-rich companies. We're thinking about companies that don't have a lot of exposure to Europe. I don't want to have to be a European Central Bank watcher to see our picks right now. And I think that, like the Dow Jones Technology Index, I think that's going to be a high-growth sector next year. I think they're focused on companies that are helping other companies grow sales or become more productive. So I like that pick right now. And let's face it, heading into the Christmas shopping season, the Dow Jones Consumer Goods, it's a good seasonality play right now. And I think U.S. consumers, the spending numbers came in really good. And even though the top 1% is kind of being vilified right now, they're still 23% of all holiday sales. And I think they're going to spend money this year. So I think both those picks got some legs headed into the year. We'll reevaluate in 2012 to see where the markets go from there.
Mark, I also recall last time you were on the show that you were talking about small caps, but you were saying to avoid mid and small cap names. You really like the solid big cap dividend players, but small caps have actually performed rather well since your last appearance on the show. Are you now looking again at small caps?
You know, we actually are, the IJR, the S&P 600 index, the small cap index there, we've recently started to add that to the portfolio. We're about 50% invested right now because we are cautiously optimistic based on earnings. We're still somewhat cautious on small to mid caps in emerging markets, but we are starting to nibble or dip our toes into the water there. So we do like that sector. Right now, the emerging markets, long-term treasury, long-term corporates, those are all things we're avoiding right now based on kind of the macroeconomic backdrop right now.
Well, Mark, all right, you're giving our viewers some tools here, but I do want to point our viewers' attention back to the Dow Jones Industrial Average just for a moment. As Mark and I were sitting here speaking, the Dow down 300 points. We're pushing session lows right now, down 300 points, 11,495. I want to take the same question to Mark, to you, Jim Awad, because before the show started, I said, come on, this can't be all super committee. There's got to be a piece of Europe, and you said there is.
Yeah, I would respectfully disagree with Mark. I think that the expectations for the super committee had come down gradually and consistently, and I think investors were assuming that it would fail. They are also assuming that you will get sequester, that in fact these cuts will be made, and I think the real risk would be if they start to fiddle around with those cuts, because then you could get another downgrade by another agency. But that's for 6 months from now or 8 months from now. Today I think it's about Europe, that the markets are testing all the changes that are going on in Europe and saying it's not enough. You didn't get a big retreat in yields on Spanish bonds as a result of the conservative victory. So I think the markets are looking at Europe and saying there's no clear path for Europe to get out of its problems. And meanwhile, the financial markets there are freezing up, which could make whatever recession they're going to have more significant and raises the potential of it blowing back to the United States.
And that affects us, Liz. And he makes the good point, too. We did have an election in Spain, and
that's right.
that does not seem to be going the way of European markets, and also
Right.
there's concerns about China still.
It's all about growing, out of your debt problems. Yeah, no matter if you get rid of the governments, as we've seen turnover in Europe, what really I think rattled investors today was Goldman Sachs also put out a report, which I have in my desk, Francesco Garzarelli, saying that the sovereign debt risk in Europe is spreading like wildfire. I don't know how Mark feels about that. Mark, what do you make of that report out of Goldman Sachs?
We are concerned about Europe, and I do think that is part of the reason why the markets are off today. But, the European Central Bank and Germany, I think, are the keys here. I mean, we're going to need a quarantine package because it is starting to spread. We need to stop capital freezing up. And it's all about the ECB because they're an independent organization and getting out of politics. They're going to be the one that brings a solution to this.
Mark Lamkin, Lamkin Wealth Management CEO. All right, Mark, we're going to have you back on. Put those picks to the test.
Thank you.
Great to have you on.